Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. Stock markets end largely in the green ahead of the Christmas weekend. Sensex moves back above 71,000. Mid-caps outperform, but financials see profit booking. IPO frenzy for the small and medium enterprises, with 164 companies listing on the SME exchange so far in 2023. That's 51% higher than 2022. SMEs raised just under 4,500 crore rupees, but received bids worth nearly 3 lakh crore rupees. The Office of the Chief Economic Advisor questions Fitch, S&P and Moody's ratings metrics, says almost half of them are opaque and driven by perception. Highlights that India's sovereign ratings remain static at BBB- during the last 15 years, despite the country moving up the ladder from 12th to the 5th largest economy. The Drug Controller General moves to strengthen quality and compliance. Pharma companies may soon have to appoint a point person to communicate with regulators and will be held accountable for day-to-day affairs. Opposition parties stage protests across India against the suspension of 146 MPs. Senior leaders take a dig at the government during the protest at Delhi's Jantar Mandir. Congress President Kharge says the BJP government cannot take away the right to speak, as it has been mandated by the Constitution. 4 Indian Army soldiers killed after militants ambushed their vehicle in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch district. An encounter is still underway. After initial reluctance, the US says it will support a UN Security Council resolution aimed to boost the flow of humanitarian supplies into Gaza, but the resolution does not include calls for an immediate ceasefire. A 24-year-old student at Prague's Charles University shoots 14 people dead and injures 25 others. Police say the shooter has been eliminated, and the father of the shooter was also found dead. Tencent leads an $80 billion rout of China's top online gaming companies. This after the country announced stricter rules to curb the amount of money and time being spent on online games. All of that and more coming up for you, but let's start with the day's market action. The Sensex and the Nifty ended with gains after a steady session on Friday. The Sensex moving back above the 71,000 mark. That's the story for the Sensex, up by about 240 points. The Nifty gained about 90 odd points, but financials underperformed, with the Nifty Bank ending in the red, down by about 350 points. The Nifty mid-cap holding strong, up by over 300 points. That was the story for today. For the week, both the Sensex and the Nifty are down 0.5%, snapping a winning streak that's lasted 7 weeks. And staying with the markets, IPOs, talk of the town this year. Investors have made a beeline to get a slice of the primary market action, but one segment has stood out, and that is the small and medium enterprises. Hormuz is standing by with a wrap of what has been hot in the IPO space. Hormuz.
Well, 2023 has been the year of the IPOs, but today we'll shed the spotlight on the segment which has taken the word frenzy to another level. I am talking about SMEs. Now, this year has seen close to 60 mainboard IPOs. The count on the SME side is a lot more. So far in 2023, we have had 164 completed and listed SME IPOs, a number that is 50% higher than 2022 and nearly 3x of what we saw in 2021. So why I say that this has been a frenzied year for the SME IPOs? Here are 2 examples that prove this point. First, together, these companies have raised a total of 4,425 crore rupees. However, in the process of doing so, they have ended up receiving bids worth nearly 3 lakh crore rupees. Here's another example. Chaman Metallics was the first SME IPO this year. It planned to raise around 24 crore rupees. Instead, it ended up getting bids for almost 5,000 crore rupees. Now that is proper frenzy. Now, why is this number significant? Because the amount of bids received by one Chaman Metallics is more than the combined sum raised by all of these 164 IPOs put together. Now, Chaman Metallics was subscribed over 200 times. Yet, it does not feature in the 10 most subscribed IPOs of the year. And that list includes companies like Kaha Packaging that was subscribed over 730 times, Net Avenue Technologies that was subscribed 500 times, and Srivari Spices and Madhusudan Masala, which also saw a subscription of close to 400 times each. Of course, one needs to keep in mind that the IPO sizes here is significantly smaller compared to the mainboard issues, and hence the number will appear to be shooting through the roof. But that also does not mean that there is no demand. There is plenty of it. Take a look at this. Accent Microcell is a 78 crore IPO and it ended up getting bids worth 19,000 crore rupees. Now the same is the case for stocks like Srivari Spices, which was a 9 crore IPO and ended up getting bids worth nearly 3,000 crore rupees. Now we spoke to you about these insane subscription figures earlier, but did they translate into strong listing gains? Well, in an ideal case scenario they should, right? But in some of these stocks they haven't. Now stocks like Transway Logistics, Tridya Technologies, High Green Carbon, all of them got strong subscription, but they either listed at their IPO price itself, while some of them listed at a discount of as much as 20% to their issue price. Now even Kaha Packaging, which is the most subscribed SME IPO of the year, is up only 15% from its IPO price. Stocks like Madhusudan Masala, despite the 450 times subscription, is up only 8% from its IPO price. Now this frenzy, FOMO, whatever you'd like to call it, has resulted in the overall market capitalization of SME listed stocks crossing the 1 lakh crore rupee mark this year. However, there are some risks associated with this too. SME stocks are not widely owned, they are thinly traded, and hence the possibility of manipulating them is much higher than their main board large cap peers. So 2023 has been the year of SME IPOs. They came, they saw, some of them conquered, while some left investors with lessons to learn for the future.
Yes, lessons to learn, and hopefully those lessons will be taken forward in the new year as well. Hormuz, many thanks for joining us and wrapping up what has been the year of the SME IPO frenzy in our markets. Now, the big international story: rising tensions in the Middle East following the Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea have led to a rise in oil prices. Analysts, however, believe that the impact on supply so far has been limited, as the bulk of the crude from the Middle East is exported via the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Swedish furniture giant maker IKEA has warned that its supplies could be delayed as shipping companies halt shipments via the Red Sea route. Over 100 container ships have already been rerouted to the Cape of Good Hope due to the attack mounted by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. Now, the diversion adds about 6,000 nautical miles to an average voyage from Asia to Europe and extends the delivery timeline by 3 to 4 weeks. IKEA says it's evaluating other supply options to ensure the availability of its products. The United States has extended its support for a UN Security Council resolution on the war in Gaza after a week of negotiations. The vote on the resolution has been put off 4 times this week. Considerable amendments, including the removal of a call for urgent suspension of hostilities, have been made as well. Now, the changes include the resolution seeks to boost the flow of humanitarian supplies into Gaza. It is not clear whether other members like Russia will back the amendments or not. Now, India has extended the reduced import duty on some edible oils until March of 2025 to keep food inflation in check. The lower import duty structure on crude palm oil, crude sunflower oil and crude soy oil was originally set to expire in March next year. Remember, India meets 60% of its oil needs through imports. Over 5% of equity in IIFL Finance exchanged hands through a block deal today. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that Fairfax Financial is the likely seller. The Canadian company held nearly 21% stake in IIFL Finance before the deal. Domestic institutional investors and long-only funds are the likely buyers. Meanwhile, shares of All Cargo Logistics up over 7% following the announcement of its business restructuring. The international supply chain business of All Cargo will be demerged into a separate entity called All Cargo ECU. Shareholders of All Cargo will get 1 share of the new entity for every share held. On the other hand, All Cargo Gati will merge with Logistics. Shareholders of All Cargo Gati will get 63 shares of the demerged All Cargo Logistics for every 10 shares that they hold. Zomato CEO Dipinder Goyal has denied reports that the company is looking to acquire Shiprocket for $2 billion. In a Twitter post, Goyal cautioned investors against such incorrect news. He added that Zomato is focusing on its existing business with no plans of an acquisition at the moment. Now, the Chief Economic Advisor, Anantha Nageshwaran's office, has published a report that questions the methodology of rating agencies like Fitch, S&P and Moody's. The report suggests that almost all the metrics used by agencies are opaque and driven by perception. Lata is standing by with more. Lata, this is not new. We've had previous Chief Economic Advisors also questioning the approach and the methodology of rating agencies. Take us through the key arguments being made by Anantha Nageshwaran.
Well, it's a very interesting collection of essays where one of the themes they discuss is this sovereign rating methodology of rating agencies. They have other things like a narrative of inequality in India. All those debates also they question. But this is a very interesting argument they bring up. They say that they've gone through rating agencies' metrics, metrics for all the three rating agencies, S&P, Fitch and Moody's. And they say there are two major categories on which all countries, including developing countries, are rated: ability to pay and willingness to pay. Now, ability to pay is very clear. What is your fiscal deficit, how much external debt, public debt, etc. But willingness to pay is a qualitative parameter, isn't it? There is some quantitative metric over there in terms of how many times you have defaulted. So, your willingness is measured. But a large part is actually a qualitative comment. And one of the things that all the rating agencies depend on is something called the Worldwide Governance Index, which is put out by the World Bank. Now, how does the World Bank arrive at this Worldwide Governance Index is not very clear. They actually seem to interview a group of experts. So it's all a perception of whether this country intends to pay up its interest or not. And that is very difficult to, it's not transparent. It's extremely opaque. So this group is demanding that a lot rides on the credit rating agency, the price that we pay for the money we loan, and with that we have to do climate change modifications in the economy. A lot rides on it, and you're not even telling us how you are rating. But when you rate us, you expect us to give us, all possible data. So they are asking for a reform in the methodology and to make it more transparent so that developing countries have a fair chance, lower funding costs. They also point out that in the series of downgrades, developing countries get like some 95% of downgrades and developed countries get hardly any downgrades. So they see an injustice there.
Lata, many thanks for joining us. Now, Polycab India shares tumbled in trade today on the back of news that the Income Tax Department is conducting searches at nearly 50 locations linked to the company. For the reasons behind the raids, however, we do not have confirmation just yet. This is a story that our colleague Timsy Jaipuria broke earlier today. A special PMLA court has granted bail to Yes Bank founder Rana Kapoor in a money laundering case. However, Kapoor will remain in jail as he's yet to get bail in a case registered by the CBI. The court lashed out at the Enforcement Directorate for prolonging Kapoor's custody without any trial. The court has observed that Kapoor had undergone more than the minimum sentence period in custody, while the trial had not yet begun. EdTech major Beverages has questioned the maintainability of BCCI's plea seeking insolvency proceedings against the company. In a hearing at the National Company Law Tribunal in Bengaluru today, Beverages assured the NCLT the company is in good health and is only suffering from, and I quote, negative media publicity. It has demanded more time to respond to the plea, citing complex payment issues. However, BCCI has maintained that the only complexity in the case is the non-payment of dues amounting to 158 crore rupees in sponsorship agreement. The NCLT has scheduled the next hearing in the matter on the 17th of January. The Drug Controller General of India is moving to strengthen quality and compliance. Pharma companies may soon have to appoint a point person to communicate with regulators. This person will be held accountable for day-to-day affairs. Ekta is standing by now with more details. Ekta, what is the regulator's game plan?
In an effort to further streamline operations of pharmaceutical companies, the Drug Controller General of India, or DCGI, may be planning to order all drug companies to name a so-called responsible person, or RP. The RP, which is expected to be identified in-house, will be accountable for day-to-day affairs and serve as a single point of contact for both state and central licensing authorities. The move, government officials say, was prompted by difficulties in obtaining information from companies, with many shifting blame to avoid scrutiny. The step is in line with multiple measures taken by the government to crack down on poor compliance after incidents of substandard cough syrups linked to deaths of children in Gambia and Uzbekistan, which rocked the industry. The RP will be the point person who will help with information on products licensed to the company, manufactured by it, and data routinely sought by authorities. Additionally, a Reuters report states that India is close to finishing an investigation into a comprehensive and exhaustive complaint that a state drug regulator, in return for a bribe, helped switch samples of cough syrups linked to deaths of children in Gambia before the samples were tested in India. The syrups made by India's Made in Pharma were linked to deaths of 70 children in Gambia last year. The Indian government said tests in an Indian lab showed that the syrups were not toxic. Made in Pharma has said that they had not done anything wrong.
All right, Ekta, many thanks for joining us. Now, top military leaders of the U.S. and China held a virtual meeting for the first time in over a year. This after U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping agreed to resume high-level military talks during a summit that took place last month. Now, the Chinese military chief has urged the U.S. government to respect China's territorial sovereignty in the South China Sea. Meanwhile, the U.S. has assured to safeguard regional peace and stability in the ties with China. Staying with China, Tencent led an $80 billion rout in China's top online gaming companies. This after the country's regulators released draft rules on curbing excessive gaming and spending on online gaming. Hong Kong-listed shares of Tencent hit their lowest closing level since the end of November 2022. Rival NetEase's stock also took a hit. The new rules suggest a spending limit for online games and a potential ban on giving players rewards if they log in every day. So restrictions are being considered there in China with respect to online gaming. Nike shares slipping 11% after the company sailed down its sales outlook. Nike's also announced plans to cut costs by $2 billion over the next 3 years. The steps include reducing management layers, increasing the use of automation, and improving supply chain. We will head to a break, but up next, opposition parties stage protests across India against the suspension of 146 MPs. That and more when we return. Four Indian Army soldiers have been killed after militants ambushed their vehicle in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch district. An encounter is still underway and militants are suspected to be hiding in the forest. Opposition parties held nationwide protests against the suspension of 146 members during the winter session of Parliament. Rahul Gandhi, Mallikarjun Kharge, Sharad Pawar, Sitaram Yechuri and other leaders of the opposition bloc gathered at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi. Congress-led UDF held a sit-in protest near Raj Bhavan in Kerala's Trivandrum. Telangana Chief Minister Revant Reddy and other Congress leaders held sit-in protests at the Indira Park in Hyderabad. Similar protests were held in Bengaluru as well. The Samajwadi Party held protests at all of its district headquarters in UP.
संविधान चलाओ, संविधान के तहत, डेमोक्रेसी के तहत सबको बात करने का हक है और वो आजादी आप छीन नहीं ले सकते। वो आजादी हमको मिली है जवाहरलाल नेहरू से, वो आजादी हमको मिली है महात्मा गांधी से। सभी एमपीज को आपने बाहर निकाला और सभी कानून अनअपोज्ड आपने पास कर लिया। इसलिए भाइयों हमको लड़ना है और ज्यादा से ज्यादा एक होकर।
मैं इतना ही कहना चाहता हूँ कि देश की संसद हो, प्रजातंत्र हो, इसके बचाने के लिए जो कुछ कीमत देनी पड़ेगी वो कीमत देने के लिए आज मंच में बैठे हुए सभी राजनीतिक दल पूरे दिन से तैयार है।
संसद में सुरक्षा की चूक बड़ा विषय है और उसमें सब लोग चिंतित हैं और इसकी कमेटी बनी हुई, जांच हो रही है। उपराष्ट्रपति जी का अपमान हुआ, पद का अपमान हुआ, लेकिन जिस बैकग्राउंड से आते हैं, कांग्रेस पार्टी का ये सोच है कि शासन करना हमारा अधिकार है। ये मोदी जी कहां से आ गए, ये द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी कहां से आ गए, ये जगदीप धनखड़ जी कहां से आ गए। इसका मतलब उनका सोच है वीकर सेक्शन ऑफ द सोसाइटी, चाहे जाट हो, किसान हो, दलित हो, चाहे अनुसूचित जनजाति हो, उनका अपमान करना।
And before we wrap, the Varun Beverages rally has made its founder chairman Ravi Kanjaipura richer than India's richest banker Uday Kotak. India's cola king, who is now the 14th richest, has seen an addition of $6 billion to his net worth this year. Yusuf joins us with his analysis.
The latest rally in Varun Beverages has taken the promoter Ravi Jaipuria's net worth to $14.5 billion, which is about $300 million higher than that of country's richest banker Uday Kotak. After more than doubling in 2022, shares of Varun Beverages have added close to 90% so far in 2023. In comparison, the stock of Kotak Mahindra Bank, which has been an underperformer for most part of the year, has gained less than 2%. During the same period, Jaipuria, the promoter of Varun Beverages and Devyani International, has added more than $6 billion to his fortune. The addition in his fortune was higher than that of Kumar Birla, Lakshmi Mittal and Azim Premji. While Savitri Jindal of Jindal Group added the most this year, others like Mukesh Ambani and Shiv Nadar of HCL Tech added $8.5 billion each.
Yusuf, many thanks for joining us. And that is a wrap on this.